Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture lecture series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind address the theme, Crossing New Frontiers to Conquer Today's Challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, St. Augustine.
The modern supercomputer is used to foresee the future. On June 20, 1974, at 1800 Southwest Campus Way, Corvallis, Oregon, United States, I caught my 19-year-old supercomputer programming teeth on what some historians of the supercomputer described as the first supercomputer. In December 1965, that first supercomputer was the world's fastest computer. That first supercomputer was the first computer that could execute over 1 million instructions per second. I first had the idea of massively parallel processing in 1974, but I experimentally discovered massively parallel processing on the 4th of July of 1989. I first discovered massively parallel processing as the engine that powers the modern supercomputer, and I first discovered parallel processing in theory before I discovered it via experiments that I conducted across a new internet that is a global network of processors. Back in November 1982, my theoretical discovery of massively parallel processing was rejected at a scientific conference. That conference took place near the White House in Washington, D.C. On the 4th of July of 1989, the U.S. Independence Day, I experimentally discovered how to harness the potential supercomputing power of the 64 binary thousand commodity off-the-shelf processors of a massively parallel supercomputer that I visualized as a new internet and as identical to each other and as equal distances are far and apart from each other. I visualized that new internet as circumscribing a globe in a 16-dimensional hyperspace. My experimental discovery of massively parallel processing was ridiculed and rejected a dozen times before it was accepted in 1989. It was first accepted by the Computer Society of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, called the IEEE. I began supercomputing with scalar processing technology, and I began 16 years before the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers accepted my experimental discovery of massively parallel processing. My sequential, vector, and parallel processing supercomputer research notes date all the way back to June 20, 1974, to the Gaussian elimination algorithm of numerical linear algebra that I coded in BASIC and Fortran languages and that I coded in my one-room apartment at 195A South Knox Street, Monmouth, Oregon, United States. My supercomputer research notes from the 1970s and 80s are posted at emeagwali.com. The essence of my technological quest was to experimentally discover the new knowledge of how to increase supercomputer speeds and how to record the world's fastest speeds via massively parallel processing and recording them across a new internet that I visualized as a global network of 64 binary thousand commodity processors, or a new global network of 65,536 tiny identical computers. Metaphorically speaking, my quest was to scale the supercomputing summit of the Mount Kilimanjaro of the unexplored world of supercomputer knowledge. Mount Kilimanjaro is the tallest mountain in Africa. That Mount Kilimanjaro of computer science was the then unknown world of massively parallel supercomputing. My experimental discovery of the massively parallel processing supercomputer began as a blasphemy. Back in the 1980s, the 1,057-page report on the new supercomputer that I invented was severally mocked, ridiculed, and rejected. At 10:15 a.m. New York time, Tuesday the 4th of July of 1989, the US Independence Day, I arrived at that terra incognita, and I did so via a primordial internet. I arrived at that unknown world by forging a path never taken before. I arrived from a narrow footpath that was never taken before. I arrived at the terra incognita of supercomputing knowledge and arrived holding a small lantern that was dimly lit that I will use to read from a secret book that contained the knowledge of how to make massively parallel processing work.
Insightful and brilliant lecture.